Welcome, weary traveler, to this quiet corner of history. Tonight, we drift far from the bustling shores of the present, setting our course for a time when the world was vast. We will seek the quieter truths, the human experiences that unfolded beneath the vast, indifferent sky, upon the rolling plains of the North Atlantic. It is not the thrill of the raid that occupies your waking thoughts, but the elemental, unyielding reality of the sea itself. There is no cozy cabin, no private bunk. Your sleeping arrangements are as rudimentary as the ship itself. There is no escaping the damp. The sea spray, carried on the ceaseless wind, is a constant companion. While some ships might have had temporary canvas awnings or tents erected in calmer waters, or at anchor, out on the open sea, you are exposed. Imagine hardtack, a kind of dry, unleavened biscuit, tough and difficult to chew, but providing essential calories. Duties are constant and often repetitive. The long oars, when needed, demand synchronized effort, a grueling test of endurance. Bailing out the accumulated bilge water is a perpetual task, as is the constant vigilance for changes in weather or the appearance of land. Repairs to rigging or sail, often undertaken in challenging conditions, require skill and cooperation. There is little personal space, little privacy. The scent of unwashed bodies, damp wool salt, and the ever-present odor of the ship itself, a mix of tar, wood, and the faint lingering smell of fish, creates a unique earthy aroma that permeates your very being. Dried fish or salted meat would be gnawed upon, their salty taste a welcome contrast to the blandness of the hardtack. It is the steady pull of the oar, the biting wind, the ceaseless spray, and the shared, silent understanding of hardship. It is a world where comfort is a fleeting dream, and survival, a daily triumph. And as the ship continues its journey, cutting through the vast, gray expanse, this elemental existence becomes the rhythm of your life, a lullaby of the waves, slowly, steadily, drawing you deeper into the past. Perhaps, if provisions allowed, some dried berries or root vegetables might offer a rare burst of flavor. Water, carefully rationed, would be drawn from wooden casks, its taste often flat and stale after days or weeks at sea. There is no hot meal, no comforting stew, unless the ship is able to make landfall or a fire can be carefully managed in a temporary hearth, a rare luxury on the open ocean. The rhythmic slap of waves against the hull, a constant lullaby, is accompanied by the groaning and creaking of the timber, the rustling of the great, square sail, and the persistent whisper of the wind in the rigging. These are the sounds that define your existence, a continuous soundtrack to your daily drudgery. It coats your face, your hands, your hair, leaving a briny film that clings to your skin. Your clothing, layer upon layer of thick wool and linen, offers some protection, but it is a constant struggle against the pervasive cold. Imagine the woolen tunic, perhaps an undershirt, topped by another tunic, a coat, and then, if you are fortunate, a shaggy, water-resistant cloak. Even your trousers, likely loose-fitting and tucked into leather boots, would be perpetually damp at the cuffs. The cold seeps into your bones, a steady, persistent ache. You might be curled against the mast, or nestled amongst coiled ropes, perhaps sharing the meager warmth of a thick, woven wool blanket with a shipmate. Your cloak, often fashioned from sturdy wool or perhaps even a rough animal hide, serves as both your outer garment and your pillow. The rough texture of the wood beneath you, the dampness that permeates everything, becomes an accustomed sensation. You are not sailing on a pleasure cruise, but inhabiting a sparse, unforgiving world carved out of wood and canvas, surrounded by the vastness of the ocean. What was it truly like to live, to breathe, to simply be aboard those iconic longships, far from the familiar scent of hearth and home? Let the rhythmic hush of the past soothe you as we explore the hidden truths of their ocean journeys. And untamed, and the very act of journeying across its oceans was an epic in itself. Close your eyes, if you wish, and let the gentle sway of our narrative carry you back through the mists of time. We'll explore a world often misunderstood, a people often defined by fleeting glimpses of their fiercest moments. Forget, for a while, the thunderous clash of battle axes or the frantic cries of a raided village. Instead, imagine a different kind of Viking. A Viking not of legend, but of the relentless, elemental sea. Our journey tonight will take us beyond the well-worn sagas of raiding and conquest. Imagine yourself, if you will, not as a glorious chieftain or a fierce warrior, but as a nameless hand, one among many, on a Viking longship. The day begins not with the crow of a rooster, but with the subtle shift in the ship's rhythm, the changing light of a pre-dawn sky filtering through the low cloud cover. As the sun, if it chooses to appear, slowly paints the eastern horizon, the true chill of the North Atlantic becomes inescapable. The longship itself is an open vessel, offering little respite from the elements. Meals are simple, meant for sustenance, not pleasure. Life on board is a shared existence, a compact community bound by the immediate need for survival. This is the hidden truth of their ocean journeys, not always the thunder of battle, but the quiet, relentless endurance against the elements. From the shared drudgery of the common seafarer, our gaze now turns to a figure whose life was shaped, and in turn, reshaped the very map of the Viking world, Erik Thorvaldsson, known to history as Erik the Red. His story is one of restless displacement, of a challenging spirit unwilling to bend, and ultimately, of an ambition that drove him across one of the most perilous stretches of ocean known to humanity. His voyages were not merely journeys, they were acts of survival, of a relentless push against the unforgiving hand of fate and nature. Erik's life began in a land already far from the heart of Scandinavia. Born in Rogaland, Norway, he was still a child when his father, Thorvald Asvaldsson, was exiled for manslaughter. This act of violence, a recurring theme in Erik's own life, forced their family to seek refuge in Iceland, an island already settled by earlier Norse explorers. Here, in this new, raw land, Erik grew to manhood, learning the ways of farming and seafaring, but also inheriting a fierce independence and a quick temper. It was this very temper that led to his first major exile from Iceland. A dispute over land boundaries escalated into a deadly feud, and Erik found himself, like his father before him, declared an outlaw. He could not remain in Iceland. But unlike many, Erik did not simply seek another corner of the same familiar world. He had heard tales, whispers perhaps, of land to the west, sighted by earlier, unwitting mariners blown off course. A place shrouded in mist and mystery, perhaps a new beginning. So, around the year 982 CE, Erik gathered a small company and set sail from the western coast of Iceland. This was no pleasure voyage. This was a desperate gamble, a journey into the unknown across the notoriously treacherous Denmark Strait. The challenges were immense. Without the aid of modern instruments, navigation relied on acute observation, the height of the sun at midday, the direction of ocean swells, the flight patterns of seabirds, the appearance of floating debris. Imagine the tension aboard his Nar, a sturdier, broader cargo ship often used for colonization voyages, though likely accompanied by longships, as days turned into weeks, with only the endless horizon for company. Storms could erupt with terrifying speed, threatening to capsize the small vessels or tear their sails to shreds. The biting cold, the constant damp, the meager rations, all the hardships we've touched upon, but amplified by the crushing weight of uncertainty. Yet, Erik persisted. And then, after days of unrelenting ocean, the faint outline of land emerged from the western mists. A vast, rugged coastline, dominated by towering ice sheets and deep fjords. He spent the next 3 years exploring this new land, carefully mapping its fjords and seeking out habitable spots. He chose a name for this desolate, yet promising, territory that spoke volumes about his ambition and his understanding of human psychology, Greenland. The name, he reasoned, would entice more settlers to follow. A stark contrast, perhaps, to the harsh reality, but a powerful draw nonetheless. Upon his return to Iceland, Eric wasted no time. He was no longer an outlaw seeking refuge, he was a visionary, a discoverer. He painted a compelling picture of a land ripe for settlement, carefully omitting, or at least downplaying, the immense difficulties. He spoke of rich pastures and abundant hunting grounds, of fjords sheltered from the harshest winds. His powers of persuasion, combined with the growing population pressures in Iceland, bore fruit. In 985 CE, a fleet of 25 ships, carrying perhaps 700 men, women, and children, along with livestock and all their worldly possessions, set out for Greenland. This was Eric's greatest triumph, and his greatest challenge. Of those 25 ships, only 14 successfully made the crossing. The others were either lost to the treacherous seas or forced to turn back. Imagine the despair, the cries of those lost to the waves, the quiet grief of the survivors who had risked everything. The voyage itself was a brutal winnowing. Those who arrived established two main settlements on Greenland's southwestern coast, the Eastern Settlement and the Western Settlement. Eric himself settled at Brattle, founding a chieftaincy that would endure for generations. Life in Greenland was an unrelenting struggle against the environment. The growing seasons were short, the winters long and bitterly cold. Survival depended on hunting seals, whales, and caribou, on managing their limited livestock, and on fostering trade with their Icelandic and eventually Norwegian kin. Leadership in such a land demanded immense resilience, strategic foresight, and the ability to inspire hope in the face of constant hardship. Eric the Red lived a long life for his time, dying in the early 11th century, likely from an epidemic that swept through the settlement. He never truly left Greenland, though his son, Leif Erikson, would eventually venture even further west, to North America. Eric's legacy is not just the discovery of Greenland, but the monumental effort of colonizing such a remote and unforgiving land. It is a testament to the sheer human will to survive, to adapt, and to always seek new horizons, even when those horizons promised little comfort, only more challenge. His life, a saga of exile and discovery, perfectly encapsulates the arduous reality of Viking long voyages, reminding us that every journey was a profound gamble against the vast, indifferent power of the sea. Having considered the sheer scale of Eric the Red's voyages and the daily rigors of life at sea, a fundamental question emerges, one that has long captivated historians and archaeologists alike: how did they do it? How did the Vikings, long before the advent of the magnetic compass or detailed charts, consistently navigate vast, open stretches of the North Atlantic, reaching distant lands like Iceland, Greenland, and even North America? Their mastery of the sea was not merely brute force or blind luck, it was a sophisticated blend of accumulated knowledge, keen observation, and ingenious, if simple, tools. Our understanding of Viking navigation comes not from detailed instruction manuals, for few such things existed in their oral culture, but from a mosaic of evidence, archaeological finds, sagas that contain oblique references, and careful recreations based on scientific principles. Consider, for a moment, the vast, featureless expanse of the open ocean. Without landmarks, without a fixed point of reference beyond the sun and stars, a ship can quickly become lost. Yet, the Vikings repeatedly made these journeys. One of the most intriguing clues to their navigational prowess lies in the concept of the sunstone, or Solarstein. References in sagas, combined with the discovery of unusual calcite crystals, specifically Iceland spar, at Viking Age sites, have led to a compelling theory. This crystalline form of calcite has a remarkable property: it polarizes light. In conditions of heavy cloud cover or even twilight, when the sun is obscured, a sunstone can be used to detect the direction of polarized light from the sky, thereby revealing the position of the sun, even when it's hidden. Imagine a Viking navigator, holding a clear, translucent stone to the sky, slowly rotating it until a distinct pattern or shadow emerges, pointing the way towards the hidden sun. This simple, yet profound, tool would have extended their ability to navigate using the sun's position, even on the notoriously overcast North Atlantic. But the sun was not their only guide. Stellar navigation played a crucial role, particularly during the long, dark nights. The North Star, Polaris, remains relatively fixed in the northern sky, providing a constant reference point for direction. Other constellations, too, would have been intimately known to experienced navigators, their movements across the night sky acting as a celestial clock and compass. Their knowledge of the stars was not abstract astronomy, but a practical, ingrained understanding, passed down through generations of seafarers. Imagine a clear night, the ship cutting through the black water, and above, a canopy of stars, each a tiny beacon guiding their way. Beyond the celestial, Viking navigators were incredibly attuned to the natural world around them. Their observations of bird flight were particularly valuable. Land-based birds, like ravens, gulls, or gannets, would fly out to sea in the morning and return to land in the evening. A navigator might release a raven, known for its strong homing instinct, and observe its flight path, using it as a living compass towards unseen land. This practice, mentioned in sagas, speaks to a deep, almost symbiotic relationship with their environment. They also possessed a profound understanding of ocean currents and prevailing winds. The North Atlantic is crisscrossed by predictable currents, and the Vikings, through generations of voyages, would have developed an intimate, intuitive map of these underwater rivers. They knew which currents would carry them towards distant shores, and which would fight against them. The subtle shift in wave patterns, the changing feel of the wind on their faces, the temperature of the water, all provided vital clues to their experienced senses. This was not knowledge found in books, but etched into their very being by repeated exposure and passed down through the oral tradition. And it is this oral tradition, enshrined in their sagas, that also holds navigational insights. While often dramatic narratives, the sagas contain geographical descriptions, accounts of journeys, and sometimes, even rough sailing directions. These stories served not just as entertainment, but as repositories of practical information, mnemonic devices for remembering routes, landmarks, and the perils of specific passages. The telling and retelling of these tales reinforced collective memory, embedding navigational wisdom deep within their cultural fabric. Even the construction of their ships, particularly the Nar, designed for long-distance cargo and passenger transport, reflects their navigational intent. Their shallow draft allowed them to land on beaches, and their sturdy construction could withstand the rigors of the open ocean. They were built for endurance, for the long haul, a testament to the journeys they were intended to undertake. The image of the Viking Longship, cutting through the waves, is often paired with a mental image of wild abandon. But beneath that exterior was a sophisticated understanding of the world, a patient observation of nature's subtle signs, and a reliance on ingenious methods. They read the sky, the water, and the flight of birds, translating these natural phenomena into pathways across the vast, blue expanse. Their navigation was a testament to human ingenuity, a silent dialogue between man and nature, guiding them through the mysterious, trackless paths of the northern seas. We have journeyed through the stark realities of the common seafarer, delved into the epic challenges faced by trailblazers like Eric the Red, and explored the ingenious methods that guided them across the vast ocean. Now, let us turn our attention to a contrasting perspective, the Jarl, the chieftain, and the distinctive role of their fleet, reflecting not just survival, but the very essence of power, prestige, and political ambition on the Viking waves. While every individual on a Viking ship faced the same elemental forces, the experience of a jarl, or a powerful chieftain, and their immediate retinue, was distinct. Their longships were not merely vessels of transport, they were floating symbols of their authority, their wealth, and their aspirations. These ships, often larger, more elaborately carved, and certainly better maintained, embodied the jarl's status. Imagine the proud sweep of the bow, perhaps adorned with a dragon's head, intricately carved and painted, a declaration of the jarl's lineage and prowess. The quality of the timbers, the craftsmanship of the mast and sail, even the richness of the dyes used for the sail, all spoke volumes to those who observed them, whether from shore or from another ship. A jarl's personal longship was often accompanied by other vessels in a small fleet, perhaps carrying his personal guard, trusted retainers, or additional provisions. This formation of ships, moving in concert, was a formidable sight, projecting an image of organized power. While raiding and warfare were certainly part of a jarl's agenda, the fleet also served as a means of projecting influence, establishing trade routes, and forging alliances across vast distances. Diplomatic missions, the collection of tribute, or the simple act of visiting distant kin, all required the powerful presence of the jarl's fleet. Life aboard the jarl's vessel, while still constrained by the limits of the time and the sea, offered certain elevated comforts. While there were no luxurious cabins as we know them today, the jarl and his closest advisors might have had designated, slightly more sheltered spaces. Perhaps a robust, temporary tent could be erected on deck in calmer waters, offering a modicum of privacy and protection from the elements. Their sleeping furs would be of superior quality, perhaps wolf or bear hides, providing greater warmth and softness than the rough wool of the common crew. Provisions, too, would reflect their status. While hardtack and dried fish remained staples, a jarl's ship might carry finer meats, perhaps cured hams or aged cheeses, and certainly, a more generous supply of mead or ale. Special cooking pots might allow for more varied meals, prepared by servants or dedicated cooks within the retinue. These small distinctions, though seemingly minor to modern eyes, were significant markers of status in a world where survival was often paramount. Crucially, the longship was also a mobile seat of governance. Political maneuvering and strategic discussions were not confined to the great halls on land. A jarl would gather his most trusted advisors, his herdmen, in the limited space available on deck, discussing raid targets, potential alliances, or the distribution of spoils. Decisions that shaped the destiny of communities and even kingdoms could be made in the rhythmic sway of the ship, under the open sky, far from the prying ears of rivals. The very act of commanding a fleet, of leading men across the treacherous seas, was a continuous demonstration of leadership and authority. The prestige associated with successful voyages was immense. A jarl who consistently brought back wealth from distant lands, established new trade connections, or successfully led raiding expeditions, enhanced not only his personal standing but also the power and prosperity of his entire lineage and community. The longship, therefore, was not just a means to an end, but an active participant in the creation and maintenance of Viking social structures. It was on these voyages that reputations were forged, sagas were born, and the hierarchy of Viking society was both challenged and reinforced. Imagine the triumphant return of a jarl's fleet to a fjord, oars flashing in the sun, the great sail billowing, laden with goods from foreign lands. The cheers from the shore, the gathering of the community, this was the culmination of months of arduous travel, a visible demonstration of success and power. The wealth brought back would be distributed, alliances affirmed, and new tales of bravery and cunning would begin to circulate, further solidifying the jarl's position. Thus, the Viking longship, in the hands of a jarl, transcended its utilitarian purpose. It became a stage for political ambition, a vessel for the projection of power, and a testament to the intricate social hierarchies that existed even amidst the harsh realities of maritime life. It reminds us that the Viking Age was not just about fierce warriors, but about complex societies driven by leaders who mastered both the art of the sea and the intricate dance of power. And so, our long voyage through the hidden truths of Viking ocean journeys draws to a close. We have moved beyond the dramatic echoes of legend, immersing ourselves instead in the stark, damp realities of daily life aboard a longship. We've felt the bite of the North Atlantic wind, imagined the perpetual dampness of woolen cloaks, and tasted the simple sustenance of hardtack and dried fish. We have sailed with Eric the Red, understanding the profound personal stakes and immense challenges of carving a new existence out of the unknown. We have pondered the ancient wisdom that allowed them to read the sky and the sea, guided by sunstone and star. And finally, we have observed the Jarl's fleet, recognizing the longship not just as a tool for exploration or conquest, but as a potent symbol of power, prestige, and the intricate social tapestry of the Viking world. These journeys, whether for trade, exploration, or settlement, were monumental undertakings. They speak to a profound human capacity for endurance, ingenuity, and an insatiable desire to push the boundaries of the known world. They were not easy lives, but they were lives lived in direct, unmediated communion with the raw power of nature. As the echoes of creaking timbers and lapping waves fade, let your mind drift from the vast, cold waters of the past back to the comfort and stillness of your own present. The Viking longships have long since returned to the earth, their timbers swallowed by time, their sails turned to dust. Yet, the spirit of their journeys, the quiet resilience and the profound connection to the natural world, continues to whisper through the centuries. Allow these ancient echoes to settle around you now, like a comforting blanket. The rhythmic sway of our historical journey has served its purpose. Let your thoughts unfurl, gentle and unburdened, as you drift further into the stillness. The currents of history now guide you towards a quiet rest. Sleep well, knowing that even in the most challenging of times, humanity found ways to navigate the vast unknowns, both of the sea and of life itself. Good night.